had power, I bet they'd want to lock people up who dissented against them. This is the kind, because fear, like I'm afraid, implies we must do something about it. You know what I mean? Man, we keep losing Grant. I don't know, man. I feel like they're messing with us a little bit. I really do. Oh, man. Yeah, stream disconnected again.
Unsafe.
Grant, you there?
At some point.
Yeah,
hey, Sean.
Stream disconnected again.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know, man.
Check this out. If we're still rolling, I think we are. We'll be coming back up, I'm sure, unless they actually took down the video or something. But if you're watching on YouTube or whatever, let me just explain how weird this is. It's not like Facebook disconnects. My whole internet goes down for just long enough to disconnect everything. Like just long enough. And I even have like delays. So if that happens, it's so weird. So both times I just did a little emphatic rant about the Board of Health and our stream disconnects. That's super wild.
I mean, I think we're still live on Facebook, man. I mean, on YouTube. Sorry, I think we're still live on YouTube. The thing is, it's just my screen gets blacked out from time to time, man. I don't know, dude. Maybe it's my upload speed on my end, or maybe it's just some weirdness going on.
I seriously doubt it. Those were right when we were talking about something. I think we're back on Facebook now. Yep. So I was just explaining to people, if you're just getting back on, my whole internet goes down when that happens. It's not just like I disconnect from Facebook. It's super, because I pay for the best Comcast internet. Like I pay too much money and I don't get all the speeds may vary, right? You know, I don't get all that. Speeds may vary. But it's not like it's so weird, y'all, because his Zoom freezes, the stream freezes, all of it, and then it says your internet is gone. So it's really weird. But anyway, I don't know the best way to handle it, Grant, except to say I don't believe that these are genuine concerns they have. And if they are genuine concerns about not feeling safe, then that's all the more evidence that they should not be governing. Because you have to be able to take public pressure if you're in a position of power when you get your consent from the governed. That's just the way it is.
And see, that's the thing is the Board of Health. You know, there's a video again in this link here that if you want to watch, it's about a 4 or 5 minute ordeal where they were sort of chastising Mayor Jacobs and expressing their opinion on how it made them feel and how they felt threatened and so on and so forth. And the general sentiment across the board was that we're not elected. We're doing this voluntarily. And if I was a PR person, I would probably tell them, don't go with that route because it plays too much into what Shine was saying before. You don't have to be here voluntarily. Frankly speaking, I think a lot of the people would prefer that you're not here at all. And I don't mean that in a sense to be threatening myself or anything. I think
no, like not here at all politically.
Politically.
Like you just do your job and go home and don't tell us what to do.
That's the point, right? I mean, there's already a resolution out there. This was presented last week to sort of dilute the power that the health board has already. And so if their sentiment is that we're unelected, that we're doing this voluntarily, well, then I don't know, man, you shouldn't be able to take yourself that seriously either. Here's what I'm saying is I think I've been inundated with politics for too long that every time I read some type of reaction to this extent, I feel as if I'm being played again, that there are some politics at play, right? That everybody has some sense of ulterior motive. Because when the doctor comes out and says that her grown children are begging her to sort of stay safe and have a patrol around the neighborhood and stuff, it's not just her. Dr. Patrick O'Brien said the video was disturbing and disheartening. He said, quote, as a military officer who is sworn to defend this country, I felt threatened by what I saw. He said, this division has got to stop. We're in this together. We'll do what we can based on science. If others want to go in some other way or want to do it shooting from the hip, so be it, but you'll reap what you sow. The reap what you sow language sounds a bit like a threat to me, I guess, if we're going to play this threatening game. So again,
no. They're allowed to threaten because they're the ones who are right. Well, man, I'm telling you, that's how they view it, man. They don't. There's a different standard for them than everybody else.
Well, Mayor Jacobs' response, if people want to know, said, look, I'm a politician. Sometimes you have to make a political statement. He said this was an attempt at a political statement. That was an exact quote that I just read from Mayor Jacobs here. All right, he's basically saying this is a political statement. It was never meant to be particularly directed at you. It's just people are feeling weird about stuff right now. They're feeling like their voices aren't heard. They're feeling like government overreach, at least in their lifetime, has not been to this extent before. So what do you want me to do as the only elected politician in this entire room of people that are now issuing edicts and mandates that people have to follow, and their voices aren't being heard about something? Now, again, to put this all in context here, Shine, I don't know. Tell me what you think we should do here. Like I said, I have the audio pulled up. If people are just really wanting to know what the audio says, it's about a 3-minute clip. We can play it. If you don't think it even matters, we can just move past it too.
I don't want to validate their claim of victimhood when there is none. I don't even want to play their voices. I think what we do is caricature and characterize what they said. I don't even want to quote them. And you know, like, here's the deal, y'all. You're welcome to do that. You know, but I'm not Dan Rather. You know, and we talk a lot about journalistic integrity, but like, this isn't, when it really comes down to it, this is like an activist information show. This is, I mean, it is a news show, but it's like, you can go look that up on your own. I encourage you to do so, but I'm not going to dignify, like, then we'd have to respond to it, Grant. Then we'd have to say, like, then we would have to somewhat take it seriously. And I don't even want to take it seriously because I think they're full of crap. I don't think they feel unsafe. I feel like they feel like they're losing their power. And in order to gain the moral high ground, they're claiming they feel unsafe.
I hear you.
And they're doing this in lieu of defending their position by the merits. Right? Like, if they were trying to defend their position by the merits, then we could address those and take those seriously and have counterpoints or maybe even agree, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not going to dignify like this like middle school version of conflict. I'm not going to dignify that. It's just the worst. I mean, I hate arguing with people who say, what are you threatening me? And it's like, no, I'm just better at talking than you, you know? No, I'm not threatening you. I'm just more assertive than you. You know, but like, doesn't mean that you are in any danger, you wimp, you know? So, and I know I'm saying, you know, and stuff a lot. It's like, people are acting like it's a big deal because these people said they were scared. It's not a big deal. And if they're not scared, and if they are, they have mental disorders. I mean, like, seriously, like paranoia, depression, anxiety, you know what I don't mean like they need to be locked up or anything. I'm just saying, like, that means they're not stable human beings, and they're not meant for this particular position. And I truly mean that. Like, they either are lying, or that means they're unfit for the position they're holding. So I don't even want to dignify it with a response or play it or anything. And Glenn Jacobs, as the mayor, is allowed to use the bully pulpit of being the mayor however he sees fit, and the voters will hold him accountable for it. You know what I'm saying? He didn't call for violence against anyone. So that's the real story, right? It's like they felt like they were threatened. He did not threaten anybody. And he's allowed to use his free speech just like they are. And I'm sure they've been quoted in the Knoxville News Sentinel saying disparaging things about Mayor Jacobs over the points or over the time, over the past few months. They're allowed to do that if they want to. It's America, you know? And if people have different points of view, they're allowed to say it. It's not like a different world because of COVID-19. The rules are not different. You're allowed to speak your mind. You're allowed to organize. You're allowed to use free speech. You're allowed to tap the grassroots. You know, you're allowed to talk to your constituents and have a different point of view than an unelected board of health. And it doesn't mean you're threatening anybody. I mean, golly, I think it's probably a little bit of a, what would you call it? Profiling. It's like, are you scared just because he's 7 foot tall and used to be a wrestler? You know, is it because he's an intimidating visual presence? It's a little bit weird to me. But I'm sorry, I've gone on this too long. It's just, I thought this whole story was really nasty because Glenn Jacobs is not, he's just doing his best. And and I think it was really below the belt to say, I feel threatened. But also such a, I mean, way to be the stereotypical snowflake. Way to just be that.
That's why I found this such a strange thing, and I couldn't figure out what my reaction was even supposed to be. And I say that because I know Mayor Jacobs personally. We interviewed him every single Friday during the radio show for a couple month period in a row. All right. I mean, he was in there talking to us, updating us on county issues. I mean, I know the guy. I don't know him like I know Shine for sure, but I at least know him well enough that we're on first name basis and we understand each other a little bit. I've never seen any aspect, and I say this with complete sincerity, I've never seen anything that Mayor Jacobs has ever done that would be demonstrable of anything casually associated, even tacitly associated with anything being threatening. I mean, like Shine said, aside from his mere presence alone and the idea that he was in the WWE, his political persona and him as a human being, I've never seen once anything where he would try to threaten another individual. And Glenn Jacobs himself, the man, I'm not talking about the wrestler Kane, the character, let's be clear here, the man himself says that this was intended for a political audience. He said in the meeting itself, look, man, this video was made for a very select, specific audience. It was made for a very select, specific day. Okay, it was made for a particular audience at this particular time. It wasn't intended for you. Therefore, I don't think you should take any intention from it. Whatever motivation you're drawing from this, I think might be on your end. Okay, and I'm so far removed from this situation now. When people were coming in, I watched the video. I can watch it right now. When people come in and say they felt threatened by him, like, what am I missing here? What am I missing here? So I'm one of those guys that jumps to this idea of I'm missing something. But I'll tell you, Shine, Teresa said in Facebook, she said, I couldn't find the video, but I agree with Shine on this one. They need to have grown up when I did in the 60s and 70s. Well, that's the problem, though, Teresa, is most of these people on the Board of Health grew up during the exact same time. I would venture to say that all these people are around your exact same age, if not within at least a decade above or below.
Yeah, they grew up with really high fences and a nanny, you know.
Right.
They obviously didn't experience the danger of the world. But here's the deal. Instead of like actually taking them seriously and saying they're wimps, because I don't think they are. I think they're just lying. I think they're just doing it to score political points because claiming victimhood is the sacrament. It's like doing the way Catholics cross their, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, that thing? Here, I'm doing it with, here, you can't see. It's their sacrament to claim victimhood. That's like go-to. That's their religion. Victimhood. I'm a victim. Yeah, a rich doctor. You're a victim. I believe you. But I think it's better to say they're probably lying than to actually take seriously that they felt threatened and try to, why would they feel threatened? Glenn Jacobs is a really nice guy. He didn't actually threaten. None of the facts are on the side that he actually threatened anybody. I just think they're full of BS.
Well, and let me transition this then into a national story. And part of the reason why Shine and I stress so hard on this story this morning is to draw sort of a segue attention to basically bring up the story that happened in Ohio. All right. And it's that first YouTube clip under the national story section sign. The whole video is maybe 4 or 5 minutes long. We may not play through all this, but I think when Mayor Jacobs makes a video like this to make a political statement, and when the citizens of Knoxville, they're worried about unelected boards making mandates or edicts that they would have to follow. I'll put it this way. If it were not for Sheriff Spangler saying that he will refuse to enforce some of these issues of these edicts, then I think what people might end up having is a situation whereby an unelected member of the community will issue something that is akin to law. And by doing so, law enforcement officers are duty bound to execute that law, to enforce that law. And if that law is something as a fine or jail time or arrest someone on the spot for not wearing a mask. Okay, so when I laid out that scenario right there, is anybody in the state of Tennessee right now thinking, well, that's fear-mongering, Mr. Henry? That would never happen here. We would never arrest someone for not wearing a mask at a football game. Are you kidding me? At a high school football game, if they're properly socially distanced from people that are not in their immediate group or their immediate family, in Tennessee, we would never have a situation where an officer of the law would walk up and tase somebody and put restraints on them. I don't know, man, because that's exactly what happened in Ohio. And I think this is this scenario that people are playing out in their mind in Knoxville right now. They're seeing things that are going around across the country and thinking to themselves like, dude, I don't know how they got this law in Ohio, but I do know here in Knoxville and Tennessee, there are people that we had no choice to say whether we wanted these laws or not. They're forcing some of this stuff on us. And you know how I feel about this. You know how I personally feel about this. From a medical standpoint, I would agree with the Board of Health. From a constitutional standpoint, they are not the body that is duly elected to enforce or enact or put forward those laws or edicts or mandates, whatever you want to call. Now, as I've been rambling, Sean, if you could play that video, we'll get through a couple portions of it. I can't see it. I can only hear it. So we'll play at least a little while, and you can just see the scenario as it unfolds. Go ahead and play it from the beginning.
I am.
Put your hand behind your back.
I will not put my hand behind my back. I'm not friendly doing nothing wrong. Get off of me. What the fuck is wrong with you? Oh my God. Get off of me. You're not arresting me for nothing. I am doing nothing wrong. What the fuck is wrong with you people? This is over a mask. Oh my God, dude. You're not arresting me for not doing nothing wrong. It's not. I am leaving. You're not arresting me for not doing nothing wrong. Stop it! Let go of my wrist! Oh my God! What is wrong with you? Oh my God! This is bullshit! You're not arresting me!
Is he an actual police officer?
I don't know.
Somebody needs to call the police.
Okay, so you're arresting I don't think he can arrest her for not wearing a mask.
Somebody needs to call the police.
This is not a warning. Call the cops, Raven.
Call the cops?
Yeah.
Will you talk to them?
I don't know if he's a real officer.
It says police on the side and on his back.
Doesn't mean anything. But he may be, Bridget, because there's a cop car over there. There's a cop car over there.
Do you want to call him?
Tase somebody over a mask. Tasing this lady over not wearing a damn mask.
It's time for me to go back to Florida.
This is bullshit! I am going to leave and I'm...
Come on, it's just a mask. And I'm going to sue you for knocking me down, dude. I'm going to.
Get my kids and let's go! Arresting her for a mask, not wearing a mask,
where's
and he
your
ain't even
mask?
got one on. Right!
Hey, where's your mask?
Remember, we're infected together now, right, guys? We've done this how many times together? How many times together? That's bullshit. Oh, here comes another.
So look, let me prove this point here just one more time, and then I'm going to hit some of the Facebook comments and let Sean comment as well. I just want to ask the question to those out there. Maybe you're on the fence about this issue, and maybe you agree with me as well. Maybe you think there's some science to bash that wearing masks is a decent thing to do. Maybe there's some science back there that says it's okay. Let me pose the question here. Do you think the video that you just watched, do you think actions like that are going to make people more inclined to wear masks? For those people that don't want to wear masks in public right now, do you think that type of enforcement action is going to cause them to think like, you know what, next time I go out, I'm going to wear a mask next time? Or do you think it would possibly give them another reason, be it taboo or whatever else, to not wear a mask just to stick it to that man? I don't know. I'm genuinely wondering that answer. My personal assessment on this is, dude, if you want to convince people that wearing masks is the best thing to do, this is probably not the most effective way to do it. I think that's a fairly objective statement that the overwhelming majority of people could agree with. Jonathan just said in Facebook a while ago that it is happening. Or sorry, that's Eric. Eric said, Nashville arrest over masks, even homeless. It is happening in Tennessee. Eric said before victimhood is sacrament, that we're talking about that previously. Now, Jonathan said they let them go. Teresa said absurd. Jeff just said in Facebook, the face mask thing has got way out of hand. Eric said two people behind them not in masks. And again, this seemed to be a situation where you saw the beginning of this video. It seemed to be a situation where a group of individuals that looked to be related to some extent, or at least had spent a long enough period of time together that you would say, okay, they're a cohesive unit. Much like restaurants and everything else right now, if you come in with each other as a cohesive unit, we will sit you together as long as you're 6 feet separated from these other units that come together, be it family or otherwise. And I would venture to say in an outdoor area like that group of individuals was, the next closest one I saw was a solid 15 to 20 feet away. So look, I'm not trying to make a scientific argument here. I don't presume to know anything about the medicine, the medical science behind what is and is not. I'm just trying to make, from a legal standpoint, legal standpoint, what I would believe to be the law in Ohio and what they were trying to enforce. And what they were probably trying to enforce is that anything in public at all, anywhere, if you're not wearing a mask, be it outdoors or otherwise, it's arrestable on site. And that's exactly what happened. And again, my point is, I believe this. In my personal opinion, I've stuck to this whole time. I think Shine disagrees with this. I would probably venture to say most of the show that watches me when I say this disagrees with this. I personally think wearing a mask is a respectful thing to do for your fellow human being. I think a couple centuries of scientific evidence has shown that wearing a mask can help stop the spread of something that might be potentially airborne. I'm not trying to get into the science right now. That's my personal opinion. When you fall on the side of having a law enforcement officer tase another human being and put restraints on that individual for not following, though, I just don't think it's going to convince anyone else to wear a mask that wasn't wearing one before. I do not believe that's the most convincing argument to get your point across.
Well, don't you think, too, you're conflating two different issues, too? Even though that they are related by context, they're really two different issues. Like whether or not it's a good idea to wear a mask or not has nothing to do with whether or not you should force people to wear a medical device. Those are two different things. Like, those are completely different things. Those are not part of the same discussion. Like, just because you think someone should do something doesn't mean that the force of government should be used to make them do it, right? There's lots of things I think people should do that I don't think that most of them the government should not force them to do. And there are many things that I think people should not do that the government should not use force to keep them from doing. Many things fall into those categories, Grant. And I think it's because of the way humans think. We're very either or, black, white, light, dark.
Dichotomous thinking.
Dichotomous thinking. So just because people don't want to be forced to wear a mask doesn't necessarily have anything to do with whether or not I believe if masks are a good idea. Right?
I hear you.
Yeah, because like if people had just been like, hey, it's a good idea, you should wear a mask, I think more people would be wearing them than they are now. I think masks have become a symbol for government using force to enforce morality.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I carry one. But I don't believe in the mandate. I don't believe that people should be discriminated from businesses. I don't believe businesses should be cited by the state or the county for other people in their business not wearing a mask. You get what I'm saying? Like, not even Absolutely. For the business owner doing something. Those are all different to the conversation and separate from the conversation of are masks a good idea. And I think we should listen to experts. But we should listen to them talk, not give edicts, not give pronouncements, okay?
Right.
Because we don't live in 14th century Europe. We don't live in 2000 BC Egypt or Samaria or 10,000 BC Samaria. We don't live in a time where experts give edicts, experts give advice, and then free sovereign people act on that advice under their own discretion. Because we believe that people have sovereignty and they get to make decisions, good or bad, for their own lives as long as they're not harming anybody else. And I think that there's at least enough information, if you want to get into the good idea, bad idea, that we're not under that big of a threat. It's not like we're not under not a threat, but we're kind of under the threat that like Hep C poses. We're kind of under the threat that typhoid poses, or, the same kind of single-digit threat that you face from communicable diseases, no matter what day it is. It's probably the same amount of danger. So I don't think there's a justification to say that not wearing a mask is hurting other people. At least from what we know now. With prolonged exposure, if you're outside, it's not a big deal. I mean, that lady was outside.
Yeah, I think it was a high school football game.
It was a high school foot. She was outside. They've talked very much about how very difficult it is to spread the disease. But I'm not even going to get into all that. It's like, dude, that woman in that deal there, off of everything we know, there was no reason to use that kind of force. No justification at all. I'm just saying I don't want to conflate the issue. Just because you don't believe in government using force for you to do something doesn't necessarily you disagree with that thing, you know?
Yeah, it's very well said, man.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. And I think...
And I know there's so many times when people are trying to either repeal laws or get laws passed, people believe that they must dislike the opposite position. Sometimes it's just nuance, you know? But that's just the way, it's always the way we think as humans. It's that dichotomous thinking.
Yeah, man, and I suppose there's some libertarian angle here that people will talk about for a very long time as to, you know, the basic precept of, you know, you do you unless and until you doing you encroaches upon me doing me. You know, your freedom stops at the point that it encroaches upon my freedom. So I guess the inevitable question is, when does you not wearing a mask encroach upon my potentially picking up some virus that you could or could not be transmitting? But at the end of all of this, what we're talking about is a little bit of what Amy just mentioned in Facebook. She said, yes, agreeing with the idea that mask wearing is probably a good idea. Doesn't mean force, though, she said. Amy goes on to say they're a way for people to virtue signal and to identify those that don't conform. Eric said, unless you're the cheerleaders or the players or the cop or the people behind them, he's talking about all the other people that aren't wearing masks. Jessica just said that's ridiculous, dragging someone out because of not wearing a mask, her yelling and screaming, spreading her own air or whatever more than her sitting there calmly. Jeff just said in Facebook too, said no. When I was posing the question before, would this type of action make you more inclined to wear a mask than before? Jeff said no, I wouldn't wear one even more. I think that's the general sentiment of exactly what Shine was expressing before is... Well,
and when it comes right down to it, you're much more likely to die from a tyrannical government than you are any disease. And that bears out in the numbers over the past 100 years by a long shot, including every pandemic. I mean, you can go look up the studies from the University of Hawaii. They did the studies on government being the #1 cause of death last century. And we had multiple pandemics in multiple continents, including the 1917 pandemic. But more people died from tyrannical governments by tens of millions. So when it comes right down to it, government showing authoritarian tendencies is a far bigger danger to your life than a disease could ever be. And that bears out by the scientific numbers.
Let's move into our last conversation of the day here. 9:43 in the program. Got a few minutes left. Peaceful transition to power. All right. I want to pull this into an Amy Coney Barrett story as well, talking about qualified immunity, because both these things all sort of play off each other. But one of the conversations you've been hearing bantied about over the last couple of days is how Trump is sort of playing around with this notion that he may not, I don't know, hand the reins off to Biden if Biden were to win. Now let me just break this down. I don't think this needs any analysis at all. This is like surface level one stuff that I'm about to say, but I feel like it needs being said. What's happening in the media is that someone is trying to get Trump to admit to allowing a conceit or a concession speech if this whole red mirage thing comes to fruition. So by day 2 or 3, when Joe Biden is picking up steam because of the mail-in ballots, they want to be able to go back and cite something later on that Trump said in a media interview and say, look, Trump said then if Biden starts picking up electoral college votes, he's gonna concede. He needs to concede now by day 2 or 3 of the mail-in ballots. I don't think no one's blind to that's happening. I mean, we all get this, yeah? They're clearly setting up a strategy. It's been done forever. They're setting up a strategy so a couple months from now they can cite something later on that Trump said or didn't say in the New York Times. That's all that's happening. And I think Trump realizes that's what's being played at. So when they're asking him questions about whether or not he's going to peacefully hand off the reins of power, and he sort of is oddly ambiguous, I'll put it this way. I don't put a lot of stock into the notion that he's pushing fascism. Is all I'm saying. I don't think we should go there yet. If you're an intelligent human being, and I would like to think that the overwhelming majority of us are probably intelligent human beings, it's okay to have a nuanced conversation about strategy from time to time. Now, if you do want to talk about a peaceful transition of power, let me just set the precedent And let me just explain to you a quick sort of history as to where we are, how we got here, and why a peaceful transition of power conversation sounds slightly comical to some people. We don't have time to get into all the stuff about the John Durham review stuff that's been going on, but just to update that, the Washington Examiner headline here, John Durham reviewing FBI handling of Clinton Foundation investigation. This is basically catching up on a story that John Huber, he's a U.S. attorney for Utah, picked up an investigation into the Clinton Foundation in 2017, in November of 2017, and nobody heard anything about it for a very long time. It just kind of died off. Well, it turns out it didn't actually die off. John Durham picked it up from Huber, which lends even more validity to the idea that they're still trying to dig up some stuff on the Clintons from way back in the day. And what they're currently doing now is, this is beautiful, I guess. They're tying some stuff that happened with the Clinton Foundation and the Uranium One deal. I'm using a lot of big terms here and hoping people are catching up to speed and staying with me, because it's decades worth of stuff that we're going through all at once. But they're pulling up dirt on the pay-for-play stuff when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, the Uranium One deal, now combining that with the Steele dossier and saying there may have been some overlap in commingled funds, and it's all picked up from Huber going into John Durham, and they're also combining it with Inspector General Michael Horowitz's report that came out in May of 2019. It's a whole big deal. Read through that. But
holy cow. Like all of that was connected? I thought they were all like kind of a la carte, like a buffet. Like
it's all coming together now, man. And all that sets the stage.
I think you have some if those are all together, then maybe we'll see like RICO charges. Like conspiracy. Like the word conspiracy can actually be used for its own definition instead of the colloquial one.
Mm-hmm. Man, whatever's going to come from this, whether it's just a PR narrative that they get out of it, whether it's some political capital they can spin during the debates, which is what I think is probably going to come out of it most immediately, or whether they actually bring charges down later on, I don't necessarily know. But I do know it sets the stage for the next headline from the Federalist. So when we're talking about, again, keep in the back of your mind, we're talking about is this question of a peaceful transition of power. I would dare to say that I think we abandoned that notion at least 4 years ago, at a minimum 4 years ago. And by we, that's
the Democrats, like not, there is no we with the Democrats, but the Democrats abandoned it on January 17th, 2016.
Yeah, man.
And have never looked back. They're not even trying to win this election. They're not door knocking. They're not setting up any Joe Biden signs anywhere. They're not sending emails or text messages. Joe Biden just does like a stream that 5 people watch about every month or two.
Well, and here at Real News, we like to try and book in programs, right? Because I think people have a tendency, and science plays this out, people have a tendency to remember the first and the last things that they hear in a long speech. The middle kind of gets washed through sometimes. And if we book in from beginning to end, I started the program this morning. Shannon and I both started the program this morning, but I made the comment that I just didn't know how seriously to take the Knoxville Board of Health when they said some of these things, when they said that they felt threatened by that video. And I say that because I end this story now with another booking of saying, like, I just don't know how seriously to take some of these journalists when they ask President Trump, like, what are you going to do if you lose? Are you going to peacefully transition power? Really? Seriously? Am I meant to take you seriously when you all were completely complicit and not just continuing the 4-year-long relitigation of the 2016 election, but never allowing the people, the populace of America, to heal after a loss? Because that's what the peaceful transition of power is meant to do. The people that transition into power get a shot at doing it their way. And the people that lost get to heal, go back, reassess, recollect, and hit it again going forward next time. But Shine, pull up this next headline from the Federalist. It's underneath that John Durham story in the national notes section. It's under the peaceful transition of power, that red headline. It says, Trump was right. FBI text detail for the Crossfire Hurricane. There's now a long list of texts that have come out. This was just released yesterday from the Federalist. Just listen to some of these exchanges from people working within the FBI and tell me if I'm supposed to take these journalists seriously. And don't say that none of this has to do anything with the journalists. All right, go read the WikiLeaks from 2016 on into 2017. All right, the DOJ was actively working with American media companies to censor stories. The media was literally sending headlines and sending script and sending stories to the DOJ to get approval on words they can and cannot use, what they should and should not say, whether they should call something a matter or an investigation if it pertains to Hillary Clinton. There was an active, outright collusion to create a media narrative that was helpful to the Hillary Clinton campaign. This is not opinion. This is not opinion. It was clearly documented. Now, the reason why people care about it or not, I don't know. But here's some of the updated conversations we have. One text here that was sent on January 10th, 2017 says, we all went and purchased professional liability insurance. Members of the FBI purchased professional liability insurance. They said the same day CNN leaked details that the president-elect Donald Trump had been briefed by Comey about the bogus Christopher Steele dossier. That briefing by Trump was used as a pretext to legitimize debunked dossier. Here's the response. They said, an agent, holy crap, all the analysts too? Saying, holy crap, all the analysts purchased liability insurance? Now, I read this exchange first, Shine, and I thought, are you using liability insurance in sort of a colloquial sense? Are you referencing something else? Is there like a political phraseology that I don't understand? No, they mean actual paid insurance, man. Like a policy plan that they pay
like an
for.
umbrella policy. Like if someone comes after us, we have $1 million to use on an attorney. That kind of insurance. Exactly. And it's really when you say liability insurance for an employee, it means attorney insurance.
Yeah, man.
Getting either criminally or civilly charged with something.
Like if I lose the house on this bet, how am I going to take care of my family? How do I pay for my legal fees? What if I? No, we're not talking not having a job. What if I might go to jail?
If the government's not paying for it, what am I going to do?
Right. The first agent said, "Yep, all the folks in the agency as well," meaning all the folks purchased liability insurance. Saying, "Can I ask who are the most likely litigators as far as potentially suing y'all?" That's one person said. The response was, "Ha ha ha. Who knows?" I think the concern when we got it was that there was a big leak at DOJ, and the New York Times, among others, was going to do a piece. So some stuff apparently was coming out that wasn't supposed to be coming out. Now, agents also said that they were worried about a new attorney general might have views about the actions taken against Trump during the investigation. And again, I don't think this needs explaining, but just so everyone knows, this Steele dossier was used to put to a FISA court. A FISA court used that dossier to issue a warrant so that the CIA and the FBI could spy or gather information on the Trump campaign. Now, the Steele dossier, that was the bedrock legitimization, that's even a word, of how the warrant was gathered, was funded initially by John McCain and then pushed off and funded by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC. This is not making this up. This is how the story went. All right. So when they're referencing some of the stuff here, when they're talking about we have a new attorney general that's going to look into that investigation, what they're saying is like, dude, if somebody starts looking into the idea that Hillary Clinton paid for this stuff and we just made a bunch of stuff up and we got this now debunked dossier that was 37 pages of just pure salacious trash. I mean, just absolute unsubstantiated nonsense. And we violated the Fourth Amendment on top of the Fourth Amendment. And we basically surveilled 3 members of the Trump campaign for 2 solid years without a single criminal charge. We got some problems. This is the quote. This is the text that they wrote about that. They said the new AG might have some questions. Then yada, yada, yada. We all got screwed. I love that text, dude. The new AG may have some questions. Then yada, yada, yada. We all get screwed. The FBI agents also discussed how the investigation's leadership was consumed with conspiracy theories rather than evidence. I'll read that again. The FBI agents also discussed how the investigation's leadership was consumed with conspiracy theories rather than evidence. Here's what one agent wrote, saying, "I'm telling y'all, man, if this thing ever gets FOIA'd," meaning Freedom of Information Act requested.
Which a lot of it has by, man, who's that group? I'll think of it here in a second. Tom Fenton's group. The guy, that real buff guy who does all the FOIA requests. He's always on. He actually got banned from Fox News, actually, I thought. But anyway, Tom Fenton's group. I'll remember his name here in a minute. Judicial Watch. Judicial Watch.
Yeah, that's their thing, right? He says, so the agent says, "I'm telling you, man, if this thing ever gets FOIA'd, there are going to be some tough questions. And a great deal of those will be related to Brian having a scope way outside the boundaries of logic, saying redacted, going on. The redacted means that there was an individual's name there at one point, but for some reason, legal reason, they can't tell who the person's name is. So redacted is one of the worst offenders of the rabbit holes and conspiracy theories. Same agent texted saying, this guy traveled with that guy who put down a third guy as his visa sponsor. Third guy lives near Navy base, therefore. So what this agent is saying is that people at the very top that were trying to run this investigation, he was getting information that was basically making it look like, dude, my supervisors are on some Alex Jones level stuff right now. Okay, they are giving me documents that say, look into guy here because he was sponsored by a third guy, and this third guy lives near this Navy base. And because this Navy base is over here, therefore, collusion.
It was feeling a little. It wasn't feeling very Justice Department-y, you know. It's feeling a little bit more like Beautiful Mind, you know.
Wasn't feeling
like the shack with all the pieces of paper and this red string tied between them, you know.
Right.
That was what was going on in FBI leadership.
Right, man. And again, one more time, let me plug this. The reason why we're finishing the show with this is keeping back in mind the overarching theme or the underlying whatever words you want to use. What we're going through here, this motif is all based upon the idea that Trump is now being interviewed about how he's not going to allow a peaceful transition of power. He will not consent, so they say. And I bring this all up, and it's like, really? Seriously? I'm supposed to take y'all seriously? There's no one, I mean, some people have been paying attention over the last 4 years as to what we've been doing, what we've been going through. But we all realize that Trump didn't even technically win yet the 2016 election. What do you mean, Mr. Henry? Well, nobody's given him the win yet. It's not just that Democrats have not had a chance to heal. Republicans have not had a chance to do their victory lap yet either. If you want to know why Trump got there in the first place, some people want to say Republicans made all these moral concessions to get Trump in office. Fine. But Trump, in my opinion, was a market reaction to the forces at play, much like any other free market. The Republicans had I don't know, they were spoiled for choice as far as the commodities they could choose from. I mean, what do we had Jeb Bush, not a great one. We had Ted Cruz. Okay.
Scott
we had
Walker,
Marco Rubio. We had
Rand
Scott
Paul.
Walker. There's like 20 of them up there, bro.
That big guy from New Jersey.
Yeah, big Chris Christie. Yeah.
Chris Christie.
There's a lot of choices, man. There's a lot of choices. Okay, you're walking through a Walmart shopping aisle, and you can pick between a bunch of different cereals.
I feel like Huckabee ran in 2016 too, but he may not have. I feel like he just ran for like 20 years straight.
But amongst all those Republican cereals, the American people, Republicans rather, they chose the Trump cereal. That, in my mind, is saying if you were spoiled for choice that much and you voluntarily choose Trump, that is a market reaction to forces at play that I think people are still trying to figure out what happened. But these are some of the forces I'm talking about. And Democrats, man, I keep thinking about that thing from Kung Fu Panda, right? We find our destiny on the road we take to avoid it. Right? We meet our destiny on the road that we take to avoid it. Democrats are going to meet their destiny on trying to take this road to avoid either a Trump president or something, because what they've done is they've continually frustrated this same Republican base that market forces led to a Trump election. They've continually frustrated that base for 4 solid years.
And increased
never allowing them to have that
increased it
victory
in
lap.
size by several orders of magnitude at this point.
Right? By several
Did you
orders of
see
magnitude.
that? See that Gary Lamb video that got real popular yesterday?
Mm-mm.
Just some dude who drives a food delivery truck making a video. It was a thank you Tim Pool video, but Trump ended up retweeting it and saying, "I'll never let you down." And it was a guy who said he was a Democrat. He started watching Tim Pool, and now he's like, man, you know, that economy last year was like the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm finally getting out of debt, and I might be able to buy a house. He's like, and I just want to go back to that, and I credit Trump for it. And this isn't a big Trump commercial. I'm just saying this is the cultural thing that's happening right now. And Trump retweeted and said, "I'll never let you down." But like, he was a guy who walked away from the Democratic Party, and then he started making YouTube videos. He's made like a whole bunch, like 100 or so. And then that one YouTube video got hot. Had like over 1 million views or 2 million views yesterday.
That's how it goes, right? You get
Yeah,
that viral
and he got retweeted by the president, you know, which is yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Trump retweeted his video or tweeted it out with a caption that said, "Gary, I'll never let you down." But like, that's what's happening. Like and he said a lot that these Democrats pushed him. It wasn't just the positive things Trump was doing. Democrats pushed him towards Trump.
right?
Made him feel like he didn't live in that party anymore. And you say that Republicans had some moral concessions. I think they increased the size of their tent.
I hear you. Okay.
And you can call that concessions, or you can call that strategy, or you can call that, I think it was natural. I think it was like osmosis a little bit. And I think it has a lot to do with people not liking wherever we were at 6 years ago.
Right.
And then not liking the options now and going with not necessarily Trump. Trump's a symbol for something else. But Democrats don't seem to get that yet.
No, I know. Right. And I think you're totally right, man. I think, again, one more time, let me make the pitch to Democrats, or I'll just make the pitch to people that just don't understand Trump. OK, y'all know where I come from. I consider myself a minarchist, but I'm also a practical constitutional realist. I call myself a constitutional incrementalist. I understand how to play the game of politics, and I understand how to get marginal wins. And I do understand that shifting Overton windows means marginal wins over a prolonged period of time. If you just don't understand the appeal to Trump, then study economics a little bit more is basically what I'm saying. That's my basic pitch for this story. If you don't get the appeal to Trump and you don't understand what's going on in this country right now, study economics a little bit more and understand that Trump is a market reaction to y'all suffocating the Republican voice for decades. That's what is happening right now. And when you come out with this nonsensical notion about whether Trump's going to peacefully transition power, I'm not taking you seriously for even a half second, because I realize the games y'all are playing too. So why was this story entitled "Trump Was Right"? The explosive new messages also show agents believe the investigation was being run by FBI officials who were in the tank for Hillary Clinton. So FBI people text back and forth based upon a tweet that Trump sent out on January 3rd, 2017, saying the intelligence briefing on the so-called Russia hacking was delayed until Friday. Perhaps they needed more time to build a case, Trump says. Very strange. The FBI people text back and forth and say, ooh, did we move that meeting? I think Trump was right. We didn't have anything on the Russia collusion story, and I think Mueller proved that 3 years later. Go back 3 years, FBI agents said it then. Fast forward 3 years, Mueller proves it to be correct, and now, 4 years after the 2016 election, we're playing the exact same games, and people are still trying to figure out some aspect of a peaceful transition to power. Hey, man, 10:01.
Maybe we can get that health board to transition peacefully out of power.
That's a bookend right there. I love it. Hey, 10:02.
Hey, sign that petition in the chat.
Yeah. I forget about that every time. Sorry, buddy. Yeah, sign that petition in the chat. Tell our members of Senate. Let me see here that you.
No, not Senate. I got it, Grant. You're not. Thanks, you got it. Okay, dear County Commissioner, I believe in in constitutional representative government. We should listen to the experts and community leaders, but those who have power to issue laws should be elected. In order for economic recovery to proceed unhindered, these ideals must be affirmed. I will be at the next County Commission meeting to support action affirming those ideals. And then you just sign your name. You put in some like address information, that way like they know you're from Knox County, right? You put in your email so it comes from your email. It's all there for you, man. Activism in a box, ready to go. All you have to do is click on it.
Also, man, you want to put in the accurate email information for sure. So when these county commissioners respond, they will respond to you. I actually got a response this morning from Larson J.
Yep, me too.
To this stuff, man. Yeah, right. Hey, there it is. Now it's 10:03 in the morning. My name is Grant Henry. Sounds weird, eh? Shine over there. We love y'all for real. We will see y'all on Monday. Peace.